You are a counselor. Do you feel that the Women's Charter provides for the protection of women sufficiently today?
If you speak about, because I'm trained in doing family violence, so you see when we see victims of violence, so if you talk about protection, issuance of PPO and DO, I'll say yes. Because these are women who actually, some of them don't even know that they have such a right. It's just that when the violence gets so bad, you know, they've been in this abusive relationship for the longest time because they don't come to us when they get their first slap or whatever. It's like they've been there for the longest time and then, you know, things get really bad and maybe someone tell them, look, this is the only way to go. So when they go to the court and they get the PPO, now that's good. But the thing is, you see, getting the PPO is fine. It protects me. But they're dealing with a partner who is definitely not happy about it to the extent that, especially on the day when we feel that we need to take her to the family court and get a PPO. And sometimes we work with this client for some time to be able to have that right and say, no, it's time, you got to go and get this. On that very day, we actually have to do a risk assessment because can we send her back home? Because the violence may escalate. You know, she may even get more hurt. So if you're asking me whether the Women's Charter, when it comes to victims of family violence, yes, it did protect them. Now that's the good part of it. But on the other hand, having the PPO, having the DO has also affected the marriage because it's about, you know, I was in control, I had the power, but now the woman flashed that, you know, you try this, I'm going to call the police. So the women are using it as a weapon.
So, Tiong Yang,
Yes.
do you also have a similar experience when you meet clients?
Yes, similar experience. And just to take it one level further, sometimes the women, in some cases, not all obviously, they apply for a personal protection order and they use that as an area to sort of restrict or deny access to the father, to the kids. Or they said, okay, now access should be supervised, for example.
This is when they have custody and they're divorced and they have custody?
Not necessarily so.
Okay.
It could just be an incident of family violence.
Oh, I see.
In which either the children are witnesses to the violence or they are victims of the violence. Right? And then you apply for a PPO and a personal protection order. That's what a PPO is. And they say, okay, now I don't think you should see the child or children. Okay, because you're a danger. It's not in the interest of the children to be with the father without supervision, for example. You know, and sometimes that happens, and if they have regular access before that, it suddenly gets cut off. And then we have to go through that process of getting to a hearing. And even if the application is dismissed, for example, you would have had a period of time in which the father may not have seen the child or the children. Right? And then when you want to try and reunite, okay, then you say, oh, but you haven't seen the child for a long time, the child is now resistant to seeing the father. And then you have a different set of problems which crop up.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes that is being used against
Do you think sometimes it results in some irreparable damage to the relationships, the three-way relationship in the family? From your experience?
Yes, it does, but I think I look at it, the relationship that's damaged is really the relationship of the child.
Yes.
It's not so much the adults because it may have already been damaged because of the marital breakdown. But you know, the innocent child then gets dragged into that process, and then they become a pawn.
Yeah.
And they become used as a pawn, and sometimes that's the problem. Right? Yeah. So it could work in that fashion also.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, I would say that in this instance, there may be some cases like that. But I think in the majority of the cases, which is what legislation is for, is mainly for the majority of the cases. In the majority of the cases, I think that a personal protection order does help. And normally, I mean, in my view, when my client gets a personal protection order, I always warn them never to use it as a weapon. Because it is not right. It's not meant to be used as a weapon. It's meant to be used as a defense, to protect, to help, you know, the family to have some harmony so that there won't be any violence any more committed. But sometimes I do understand from Jajit's example, that it exacerbates, but I think it's a question of how it's being handled thereafter.